3 messages before today's interview educates and motivates you. First, if you're a domain name investor, don't you have unique legal needs that require domain name technical know-how and industry experience? That's why you need David Westlow of Wiley Ryan. Go search for David Westlow on Domain Sherpa, watch his interview, and you can see for yourself that he can clearly explain issues, can help you with buy-sell agreements, deal with website content issues and UDRP actions, and even help you write your website terms and conditions. David Westlow is the lawyer to call for internet legal issues. See for yourself at newmediaip.com. Second, managing multiple domain name marketplace and auction site accounts is a pain. Inevitably, you forget to sign into one and you lose a great domain, or worse. Now imagine using a single, simple to use and comprehensive control panel to manage all of your accounts. That's Protrata. You can set up search filters, analyze domains, automate bidding, list domain names for sale, buy domains across all major marketplaces. Protrata also has a new semantic engine that builds Google-friendly websites with rich content and network feeds. Sign up at protrata.com to get 20 free credits and start building and monetizing your domains today. Finally, if you have questions about domain names, where should you go to ask them? The answer is dnforum.com. Not only is DN Forum the largest domain name forum in the world, it's the best. You can learn about domain names and the industry, buy and sell domain names, talk about the domain name news that's happening in the industry, and even meet domainers just like yourself. Register for a free DN Forum account and begin advancing your skills and knowledge today. And when you do sign up, send me a friend request so we can connect on DN Forum. Here's your program. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger and I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, the website where you come to learn how to become a more successful domain name entrepreneur and investor directly from the experts. Ever since the internet bubble of the late 1990s, I've personally watched, tracked, and learned from the community websites that have started, grown, and later exploded with traffic. I'm always enthralled with the stories of growth, so when I get a chance to speak with somebody who has experienced such growth, I jump at the opportunity to ask them the questions and learn from their experiences. Today, we have one of those stories of growth. We're joined by Andrew Schrage from moneycrashers.com, a website whose tagline is, quote, your guide to financial fitness. We're going to discuss Andrew's online strategy for moneycrashers.com, how he marries his passion for helping others understand financial market with the online community, where anyone can learn the most effective methods to handle their finances, how Money Crashers has made him a recognized authority in the financial industry, how it's led to explosive growth on the website, and how he monetizes it. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
All right, so first off, we have to talk about the domain name because a lot of our readers are passionate about branding. They're passionate about search volume. You've chosen a brandable domain name, moneycrashers.com. At first blush, it sounds ominous, like the site's warning of impending financial doom. Why Money Crashers?
Yeah, it's a good question. So basically, we wanted something that had a money element so people knew what they were getting into when they came to the site. But we didn't want to do something boring and mundane like a lot of financial sites out there, like getoutofdebt.com, save more money, live on lots of money.com. We want something that had more of a branding element, something a little more unique. And kind of the way we interpret Money Crashers is the site is a way for readers to come to kind of a community, a place where they can crash and talk about money, their tips, their questions, kind of a more friendly environment community where people can come and kind of get their questions answered, give their tips, and hopefully find some good value in the articles that we produce on the site. And I know some people will come to me and say it reminds them of Wedding Crashers or something like that. So that doesn't hurt. It gives a little more of a humorous element to it as well.
And that is one of my top 10 movies of all time. If you haven't gone and seen Wedding Crashers, you definitely have to watch that one. So when did you acquire the domain name moneycrashers.com?
Back in 2008. So we were debating whether we want to create a domain name from scratch, and we tossed a lot of names around that hadn't been claimed before. and we also looked at ones that were out there and available. And we definitely didn't start with Money Crashers and then look for it. We saw it and said, hey, this kind of has a nice ring to it. Yeah, it might kind of be ominous to some people, but I think as we can build the brand over time, it'll be associated with more of a positive financial element, and that's kind of what we hope we've done in the last few years.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's talk about today, and then let's go back in time. If I were to look at moneycrashers.com today, which, until you and I first started talking a couple of weeks ago, I had never been to moneycrashers.com. It's clearly a fully developed website with a lot of opportunities. What is your traffic today in unique visitors per month on the website?
Yep, it's right around the high six-figure mark on a monthly basis, so around, say, 800,000 number.
Wow, that is a lot of unique readers per month. And how many page views are those readers taking a look at?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably close to the million number mark, maybe a little more than that. Obviously, it fluctuates depending on readers coming back, or sometimes we'll come up with a specific guide that people will come back repeatedly within a month, whether it's a tax guide or couponing guide, something like that. So it does fluctuate here and there as far as repeat visitors, but probably right around that mark.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so it's clearly a website that's well trafficked, and we're going to talk about some advertising, how you've gotten onto major news networks, why people on the news are reaching out to you as an authority to talk about money and how people can save it and how people can grow it and all those sorts of things. I had a good time going through YouTube and watching your videos on those news shows. And so we're going to figure out how you got to today at a site with 700, 800,000 plus unique visitors per month. So let's go back in time, Andrew. You said that you in plural were looking at different money-related domain names. So you have a partner in the business. Can you tell me who your partner is?
Sure. It's Gyute Park, and well before we launched Money Crashers and launched this whole endeavor, we both had, I think, chatted over drinks for the first time. We both wanted to do something where not only would it be a little more entrepreneurial, where we have our own business and can really be invested in what we're doing on a daily basis, but also something that gives back in some way, whether it's education or community-based stuff. And we decided, especially in 2008, that was kind of the height of the recession, height of kind of things kind of going down the toilet, for lack of a better term. And we thought having a financial education site would be the perfect fit. I mean, both myself and Gyute had gone through college, never took a personal finance course. No one ever taught us about credit scores, bank accounts, dangers of credit cards, things like that. And I think a lot of people go through that. And unless you have parents or older siblings or teachers who kind of maybe went out of their way to teach you about this stuff, then a lot of people are young adults right out of college, starting families, who don't know a lot of these basics. And that was kind of our way to marry our desire to do something entrepreneurial, but also something that will really add value to people's lives.
Yeah. So you and Gyute, did I pronounce his name correctly? Gyute?
Yep, very
All right.
good.
I love his bio on your website. It's like, my name is Gyute Park. Good luck pronouncing that. So you two met in college, or you met after college?
We met after college. We both were living in Chicago, met through mutual friends, and just chatting, kind of found some common ground on interests and things we wanted to do long term.
And what were you doing after college when you two met?
I was working at an investment fund. So right out of college, I graduated from Brown in 2008, moved right over to Chicago, worked at a fund in downtown Chicago, and that's what brought me out there. Gyute graduated from Northwestern, and he was staying in the Chicago community, also working on his end, and that's kind of what brought us together in Chicago.
Got it. And so you had the economics, the financial background, and Gyute brought technology background to the team?
Yep, he has a very strong technology background, website background, knew a lot of the ins and outs. I didn't know back then the ABCs of how to start a website or what it is or how you can monetize them. None of that really made sense to me. but I did have kind of the financial background. I majored in economics, a real passion for personal finance, business savvy, and it was kind of a nice meeting of the minds to take advantage of both of our skills.
Definitely. So you two met through a mutual friend. You decided that you had aligned interests. Did you actually become friends before you decided to go into business together?
Yes, we were friends, and we had thought a little bit about it. What if things go wrong? Is it going to sour the relationship? Things like that. But we really did feel like we complemented each other well, personality wise, skill wise, and had the same long term interests in mind, and also understood the business risks. And hopefully, we didn't at the time envision anything going wrong with the friendship, things like that. And we felt it was great if we could do it to team up and partner up with a close friend.
Yeah. So you had the idea for personal finance based on what you didn't learn in college and what you saw a lot of your friends and colleagues having to deal with. The economy clearly a bad time, 2008, 9, 10. You know, some people even say today, although it looks like the economy is on the right track, a right trend. And you know, this is the same time that all the deal sites were coming out. A million different deal sites in every single industry and category, the living socials, the Groupons, and then every single niche under there. So definitely financial space was a great place to be because people needed to save more money and were looking for opportunities. So did Gute, did sort of you come up with the idea and Gute agreed to that, or did you both come up with it together to target that? Did you have some other ideas that you were thinking about as well?
Yeah, I mean, we knew we wanted to do something online based. We just felt like it was such a big growing area of business, of the world. Everything was moving online, advertising, TV shows, everyone was watching those online. So we just felt like that was a good space to be in. And then from there, we had to pinpoint what area we want to be in. We weren't going to be a news site and talk about all the current events and breaking news. We wanted something very focused, something niche, and we tossed around a couple ideas, but I think the a large reason we went with the financial niche is not only because anyone can relate to it, everyone has financial problems in their lives, so we felt like we had a big readership community that we could kind of choose from and reach out to a very wide audience across not only the US but even the world. And also with my background, just it helped us that I started out as kind of the editor-in-chief, so investing topics come in and investing articles come in from our contributors, and it was nice to have someone who had that expertise and knew here's what's accurate, here's what's not, or here's what we need to write about based on this kind of breaking news. Maybe we talked about government budget deficits back when that was a big topic, and I could kind of figure out what we should write about, what angle we should tackle it from, and make sure everything's accurate before publishing. So by going with the financial niche, it allowed us to at least utilize my skills, my background, which we felt could add even more value to the site and credibility as well.
Yeah, definitely. So you looked at the different options. You thought that was an enormous pie that you could, get a small chunk of and do really well, clearly. And so did you both quit your jobs or stay in your jobs and then start this? How did that work?
That's a great question, and something that I'd suggest to most people, if possible, if it's especially an online business, try to build it up to a point before you start going at it full time. There's just going to be too much pressure on yourself from other people to make money right away, and that's a recipe for disaster. You might create just a bad site, totally geared and kind of with the one goal of making money, and that's going to turn off readers. If you don't make money quickly enough, you're much more likely to quit and go back to the full-time job. So to answer your question, what Gute and myself, we both did is we kept our full-time jobs and kind of just started Money Crashers as kind of a side hobby, side business, spend a couple hours a day, a few hours a day. I'd come home from work and work on it at night, and something I really enjoyed. And seeing it grow slowly was very rewarding. It wasn't making money for months, if not the whole first year. Mm-hmm. And that was okay because I had money coming in from my full-time job, but traffic was at least building on the website. And so after a couple of years of kind of the dual full-time job working on Money Crashers, that's when we both made the leap within a couple months of each other, where we felt, hey, we're not only getting burnt out because the website's gotten big enough where we're spending many hours a day, but being able to devote full-time hours to the site at this point will really make a difference in its ability to grow and its ability to reach out to more people.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you two decided that you wanted to work on this. You two decided the industry that you wanted to be in, the topics that you wanted to address, personal finance, everything from the college student up to the individual professionals working, to the married couple, to the people planning for retirement. And you've got a whole range of topics to cover there, enormous amount of content. So you looked at domain names. You thought about, should we build it or should we buy it? And how did you go through that decision process of build versus buy, and then come to the decision that you wanted to buy moneycrashers.com, the website?
Right. It was a very big decision, something that we weighed kind of back and forth. It was almost 50-50 for a while. And a lot of it did come down to the domain name. We really did like the domain name, felt it had a good ring to it, and it just kind of gave us a nice little starting point at where we could go in. And we also made the decision that if we were going to buy a domain, we didn't want to pay hundreds of thousands or some crazy amount of money and take out loans. We didn't feel like that was worth the money. We just wanted quality name for a nominal price, very insignificant number that we felt would kind of give us a nice little platform, a nice brand to build off of.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so how did you determine that moneycrashers.com was available for sale?
It was available through, I can't remember the site. I want to say it's one of the website reseller platforms where sellers come list all their sites, buyers come to buy sites, and we did some kind of filter on financial sites. Maybe we searched the word money, finance.
Sure. Okay, so you just went to eBay or flippa.com or something like that.
Yeah, it might very well have been one of those too. So
yeah,
that's all we did. We kind of used that to kind of give us a starting point.
And so what was the traffic and revenue of Money Crashers when you bought it back in 2009, I think you said?
Yeah, very insignificant. I mean, I would say very low five figures on a month. So maybe around 10,000 or if that. It was definitely something which was nice to have a starting point.
10,000 readers per month.
Yep, exactly. Yep. It was nice to have some traffic, and that was another reason that we felt moneycrashers.com was a good start. Instead of starting at zero and having zero visibility, anyone who's started a website knows how difficult it is to start from scratch, and just kind of psychologically to have something to have as a base, a foundation was nice as well.
Definitely. Yeah, when you publish something and then you can look at the analytics and see that it was read 100 times or 1,000 times, or you get some comments on it and you know that for every one comment you get there's probably 10 or a multiple of people thinking the same way but they just never replied. That's satisfying that you know you're actually doing something to help somebody. So about 10,000 readers, you said. How much revenue was it generating at the time?
Very insignificant, maybe $100 a month, maybe less than $100 a month.
So negligible, essentially. And then, do you remember how much you paid for the website way back then?
Three figures, maybe. Very insignificant amount.
So under $1,000 you bought it.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you got a brand, you got 10,000 readers. Maybe it came with a newsletter list or something, or was it just the traffic that came to the website?
It didn't come with a newsletter list. It was just the traffic. There's some RSS subscribers, things like that.
Yeah.
But no newsletter list. It was pretty bare bones. I mean, there was traffic, there was some content on the site, and that was great to have some content that we could build off of, improve. The previous writer who was writing on the site, we were able to keep him on board and have that consistency going with the site, which was important for us. We wanted to kind of have that same message going and not just buy a site and completely revamp it, especially for readers who were coming back. So yeah, that was kind of the setup
So it
there.
wasn't just an owner operator prior. They actually had a writer on staff.
They had a single writer
Hmm.
on staff, which was nice again to have. We had a writer, but we fairly quickly wanted to delve into other areas, other topics of expertise, and
Sure.
obviously one writer couldn't do that. So we fairly quickly started bringing on additional contributors and team members.
Okay, so you and Gute realized that you not only needed to spend a few $100s to buy the domain and the content that came with it and 10,000 readers, which was probably a pretty good deal even back in 2008, 2009, but you realized you needed to put money into it. You couldn't just put your own time into it. Gute couldn't just upgrade the technology and you couldn't just write articles on your own. You needed to bring in some outside writers to have more content.
Right. That's exactly right. I think we decided while we could theoretically, I mean, I could write all the content and edit and publish, and he could take care of the website. Just one, I'd probably get burnt out doing so much content creation, and it would also become boring probably for readers to just hear one voice. But also just purely on the side of being able to reach as many people as possible, being able to tackle as many topics as possible, and have expertise in areas that we didn't have expertise. We knew it was a good idea to kind of go the multi-author route and have multiple contributors on the site.
So, how much were you and Gute willing to put into the business the first year or two? Do you remember you two sitting down and saying, we've got some savings or we've got some cash flow from our day jobs, in addition to our time of a few hours per day, let's put in this much money to hire some outside people?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, what the strategy we use and what I'd suggest people do is not to try to grow too quickly. We literally went from 1 to 2 contributors to 3. We didn't bring on 10 or 20 or 30 all at once, and that's in large part to your question, which is we didn't want to, and not only want to, but it just wasn't feasible for us to bring on that many people and be able to sustain it for a long period of time. So we kind of incrementally tried to build how many people were writing for us, working with us, and as that kind of grew slowly, as traffic grew, then monetization grew a little bit, advertising grew, and we kind of just jumped back and forth between the two. Add a writer, give it some time, see if we can get some visibility for the site. Hopefully, revenue goes up. If it does, and try to, at best, have the website kind of sustain itself with its own cash flow and kind of go that route.
Mm-hmm. And so were the writers full-time when you started off or during the first year, let's say, or were they contracted and you paid per word or per article or per hour?
Yep, they were contracted and it was per article.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that gave us control over how much we had to pay out in expenses each month, because we could say, hey, do this many articles, don't do any more for the rest of the month, whatever it might be. And that was part of the strategy there as well.
Definitely. Okay. Do you remember how much you were paying per article back in the beginning?
I'm not sure what it was, but it wasn't significant. I know a lot of the writers that we did hire, especially at the beginning, were kind of full-time freelance writers, full-time contractors, and we were kind of filling in, a lot of them would admit, filling in any extra space they had. And sometimes they couldn't write as much as we wanted them to write because of the setup we had.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I, when we did our pre-interview call and we chatted and I asked you a bunch of questions like we're doing right now, and I said, Andrew, I've got the exact same situation that I went through back in 2000 when I started my prior media company and how I grew it while working at my day job and worked in the evenings and on the weekend. And, I remember when I first started, I was willing to pay $50 an article, and I was publishing one article per week, so I always knew that they were going to be decent articles and I only had a $200 outlay per month for content, as well as the user-generated content on the website, like dictionary definitions and discussion forum posts and things like that. And then I always knew later on, as my community grew, I would be able to then get user-generated content from people that wanted to say they were published on our website. Does $50 per article sound like it was high for you given the personal finance base, or does that sound like it was probably the order of magnitude that you were paying?
No, I think that's a reasonable amount for sure. I think that's I've heard of people paying $5 an article, $7 an article, even in the financial space, and you can tell when there's that's what's being compensated because there's a huge reduction in quality. I think as you get anywhere from at the low end, hopefully $20, $30, but up to 100 or more dollars per article, or to whatever the setup is you have with the writer, I think that you do get a big quality trade-off and a big increase in quality. So I think that's definitely a reasonable amount.
Yeah. All right. Great. So you hired some writers. Do you remember what your publication schedule was at the very beginning? Were you publishing an article a day, an article a week?
We were publishing probably at the very beginning one article a week.
Yeah.
And then the next publication schedule, probably 3 to 6 months after that, was 3 articles per week.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of still very gradual. Then 1 article per weekday. And that's probably a year to a year and a half after starting. And then where we are now is anywhere from 1 to 3 articles a day on weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's significant. Okay, so you basically just added more articles as the cash flow, as the revenue would allow you to do that.
Right, exactly. And we tried to also, as much as we could afford, because the more experienced writers generally expected more compensation, and we also tried to increase the quality of the writer at all times, and doing that also kind of reduced the work that I had to put in. I still am, but back in the first 2 to 3 years, I was very hands-on editor and edited everything top to bottom, made sure everything made sense. And as you might expect, as you bring on higher quality writers, it does take some of the pressure off the time that needs to go in on the editorial side.
Definitely. So when you started out, the very first day that you launched and you had a writer, do you remember what day of the week you started you published that one article?
That I couldn't remember, but I'm not sure.
Was it always the same day when you published? Do you remember?
No, it wasn't. We definitely didn't have a set schedule. I mean, it was typical kind of startup. An article comes in, I finish it today, I'll just go ahead and publish it. We did not have a firm schedule. We weren't organized enough, and it just wasn't kind of partially because we're working full-time jobs too. We might not have time on a Monday and more time on a Thursday. So it was a little erratic, and I'm sure any readers and subscribers that followed the site might have been bothered by it a little bit, just the inconsistency, but we definitely did the best we could.
Yeah, well, clearly you're not hurting for it today, so I was just wondering if there was some sort of consistency. So you were the self-proclaimed editor-in-chief at the time. You wrote some articles. You edited the articles that came in. Who actually set the editorial direction? Did you go to your writers and say, I need an article on something related to college students, something related to married couples, and something related to retirement over the next 3 weeks? Or did you allow them to pick their own topics and submit them to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. On that latter idea where I go to them, we generally try to keep that to a minimum. We do that a little bit as kind of current events come up. So, for example, the LIBOR scandal, the recent LIBOR scandal, I happen to know a lot about it, and some of my friends were asking me not about the scandal, but what is LIBOR? What does that mean? What's the history of it? So that's an example where I went to a qualified writer and said, hey, can you do an introductory post to LIBOR? You can include a little section at the end about the scandal and what happened, but keep the focus on what LIBOR is. So that'll happen once in a while. Generally, as I see a current event come up or some economic policy up for debate, and I think we might have a hole in the site related to that topic. But for the most part, we encourage our writers to come to us and say, hey, here's what I want to write about. Here's my background, my experience. What do you think of me writing about this topic? And it's more of a collaborative process of us going back and forth with them on their initial topic idea. Often we'll say, yeah, it sounds great. Go ahead and maybe touch on these points that I'm thinking of, or let's tweak it a little bit. And what we found is by giving the contributor, the writer, a little more flexibility, it'll increase the quality of the pieces because it's areas and topics that they're comfortable in, that they have expertise in, and also probably helps them enjoy the writing aspect more if it's something that they're not being told to write and that they actually want to write for the site.
Sure, and it makes your job easier too, which is great because then you don't have to micromanage every single little topic in the editorial calendar. But do you worry that people are going to pick topics that is comfortable to them and not topics that are most needed by your audience?
Yeah, and if that happens, especially as new contributors come on board, we as part of the collaborative process, we say, hey, these topics are not hitting the mark because of A, B, and C, or hey, we already have so much content in this area. I know your background. I know where you worked before. Why don't you try writing about some of these topics, which I think you could add a lot of value, and kind of giving them your opinion, your feedback, especially at the beginning, helps them get more of a feel because they need to adapt to the role as well, and gives them more of a feel of what you're looking for and what topics and areas that might be best suited for them.
Yeah. Do you how do you determine if the articles that they're writing are actually on the mark or off the mark?
Pretty much from reading them. I mean, every article goes through at least a couple editors on our team before being published, and basically we all have the background necessary on a given topic to kind of deem whether it's on the mark, off the mark, not hitting all the points that it should hit. And we'll often, you could probably ask any contributor on our site, so probably to their frustration at some points, we'll often send articles back to them saying, hey, this is inaccurate, or hey, you missed this aspect that we want to delve into. And that's kind of our process. We never publish anything directly to the site, and everything has to go through a fairly rigorous editorial process just because we need to maintain the integrity and quality of the content.
Yeah, and I love hearing that. I was afraid that you're going to say, well, we look at the Google Analytics or our analytics system, and if it doesn't generate more than 1,000 per day, then we ask the writer or we tell them to write better subjects that suck people in or something like that. So you don't really look at the analytics to say if it's useful. You're saying, is it a topic of need to our readers? Did they cover it from an editorial standpoint in enough detail and that, people can understand and implement?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because a lot of writers do say, hey, I could write about this if I suggest something to them, but they'll say, actually, where I wrote before, these topics don't get a lot of traffic. I don't think you really want me to write it. And we'll never base a topic solely based on traffic potential, things like that. If it's an interesting topic, an interesting area, even if it's the most niche specific topic where there might only be a few hundred people who have any interest in it, we'll gladly have them write that, and we encourage them to write about it as long as they're knowledgeable and have experience in it.
Good. Yeah, if I have to read one more article like the top 10 ways to retire by the time you're 30 or, those top whatever numbers, those always kill me because they're so superficial and the headline is just written to get people to click through, and maybe it'll generate the click through today, but it's not generating a loyal reader in me for sure.
Right.
Okay, so let's back up to the technology. When you and Yute bought the website, was it using a content management system or was it hand-coded? Do you remember?
It was on WordPress.
Okay.
Which was something we wanted. We wanted to work with WordPress. Yute had a lot of experience with WordPress, and it's just a very user-friendly platform to build a website on. So it was on WordPress and is still on WordPress today.
Great. So you just kept it on WordPress. You upgraded the core files as WordPress came out with new features, and so open source content management system. Any other special technology that you guys use on the website?
It's pretty low tech for the most part. I mean, we'll put in plugins via WordPress to help put in certain widgets, things like that. But for the most part, it's WordPress at its core. We don't have any other fancy software programs. We try to keep it pretty simple, which also helps writers submit their pieces directly to the site. We don't deal with email, things like that.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that is useful. So was it just you and Gute that bought the website, that put in the time, or did you take outside investment from anybody?
yep, it's just been Gute and myself from the beginning, and we have had people come to us throughout the past few years, and we've thought about it as well. Hey, what if we try to raise some outside funds that might help us grow more quickly, hire full-time editors, more full-time writers, and we just decided having the control and ability to implement what we envisioned for the site was pretty invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
And while it might slow the growth a little bit, we felt over the long run, if we could sustain it with our current model of trying to have the website sustain itself and pay for expenses through the website with minimal out-of-pocket expenses, that was the way we wanted to go.
Yeah. Okay. So my next question was around the budget, but if you were doing some of the writing and Gute was doing all of the tech side, the background, keeping the website up and running, your costs were minimal at the time. You had to pay for hosting, you had to pay for some writers. Did you back to my previous question that I can't remember the answer for, I'm sorry. Did you and Gute set aside a certain dollar amount that you were going to invest in the business the first year or two?
We didn't, just because we kind of had a strategy. We felt pretty confident. We also didn't want to limit what we could do. We didn't want to grow the site and then hit our max amount that we could invest and then kind of stop growing the site. We kind of just assessed things as we went. Mm-hmm. Hey, how's the site growing? Are we seeing legitimate increases in traffic, revenue? Do we see the potential there? And if we were reaffirmed with those kind of statistics and seeing that what we were doing was making a difference, then we felt more comfortable paying more in expenses, hiring other people, and that kind of, and basically just becoming more invested in the site overall.
Yeah. Do you remember the day or the month where you finally got broke even, where the advertising revenue from the website was actually equaling the hosting, not counting your and Gute's time, of course, but the out-of-pocket expenses were actually equaling the advertising income coming from the site?
Yeah, I think it was right around the 1 year anniversary where we kind of reached that amount, which wasn't, I mean, it's not exactly apples and oranges. Sorry, I should say apples and apples. It's more apples and oranges because we were increasing expenses that first year, so it pushed out our break-even point because we were increasing expenses even while revenue was lower than expenses. But I'd say right around that 1 year mark. But as you mentioned, if we did account for the time we put in during that first year, then break-even point was way further out, and just because anyone who's starting, you put in way more sweat and tears than you're going to get out, at least financially, at the beginning.
Definitely, which is why you need to keep that day job so you don't become disgruntled or disappointed. Then it's just sheer will and determination. If you push through for that year or 2 years or whatever the point is where you break even or where you start to become profitable and you start seeing progress towards that progress will help motivate you to continue to do it. So if I look at your website today, I see Google AdSense being delivered on it. I can see the Google ads on there. Did you show Google ads from, I can't remember in 2008, 2009, if Google ads were in place. I believe they were.
Yep, that has been and is still our main source of revenue on the site is Google AdSense. Just because it's so liquid, it's so accessible. There's not a limit on how much you can make on it each month, and while the revenue might be a little bit lower than you could get with direct ads and I guess other forms of revenue, it's been a nice kind of option to place on the site, and we can kind of see that how it's doing or what articles that does better on, and we'll complement that with other forms of advertising, which we can talk about as well. But AdSense was around. That was pretty much solely what we used back when we started, and while we've diversified a little bit away from that, it's still an important part of the site.
Yeah. Okay. So it's easy to implement, very easy to pull off if you want. So you put up the code, which is just JavaScript, and it's displaying ads. How have you augmented that income with other advertising opportunities or with other, income opportunities?
Yep. So I mentioned that the kind of, I guess, compensation that you get from AdSense is on the lower end. So there are people that come to us or will reach out to other networks, basically third-party advertising networks that replicate what Google's doing, but on a much smaller basis. So there'll be a financial middleman, someone who just entrepreneur like wants to compete and do something in the financial space. So they'll gather up 10, 20 financial websites, and they'll do all the work kind of finding advertisers, finding companies, and saying, hey, I have these sites in my network. If you give us kind of X amount of money, then you have full access to these sites. That's something that we've utilized. We've experimented with third-party network A, B, C, what's done well, which ads do the best. And as long as those networks are relevant and the things that they're promoting on our site are something that we are comfortable with, so as long as it's not stuff like payday loans or kind of encouraging people to take on debt, then we're fine experimenting, seeing what sticks and what might do better than one network or even AdSense. So that's been a big part of it.
So you're currently using those third-party ad networks in addition to Google AdSense?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And is the revenue that you generate from those higher than Google AdSense?
It's higher on kind of a per unit basis, as I mentioned, just because AdSense is so low, but a lot of those networks will have built-in stopping points of either revenue or traffic or whatever it might be,
right,
where you're not supposed to, or you're technically blocked from posting those ads until the end of the month. So
gotcha.
AdSense still remains the highest, but again, and then that's why it's a great tool, is because they generally don't have any kind of mechanisms in place. They have the liquidity with their advertisers that run through them to kind of fulfill whatever you want to fulfill on your site.
And if I go to your website, and I encourage all the audience watching this to go over to moneycrashers.com and look around, and if you look down the right-hand side, under the Facebook box, there's a recommended box, and it has categories like banking and credit cards and stockbrokers and financial tools. And if I mouse over a lot of those, Andrew, I can see that it's moneycrashers.com/Ally Bank Review or ING Review or what have you. And then when you go to those pages, which are on your website, and I assume that they're editorially written, the links from those to the websites like Ally Bank or Lending Club are, I believe, affiliate links. Is that correct?
Yep. So yeah, all those links you see in the recommend section go to reviews that we've done of certain products. So just pulling it up here, as you mentioned, Ally Bank, ING, Mint.com, Zillow, which is kind of on the real estate side, we'll do reviews of products that either we've tried or one of our contributors has experience with or has researched heavily, and it's in large part due to readers asking, what do you think of this product, or tax season's coming up, what's the best tax software to use?
Right.
And we'll review these products, and a lot of these products also have, as you mentioned, affiliate networks set up. So say someone signs up for TurboTax and pays whatever the fee is for whichever product they get. They won't pay any more for that product, and sometimes they'll get a cheaper rate than they would getting it directly through TurboTax if we have some kind of discount for the site or for our readers. But the affiliate side, where we get a commission based on that, is also part of the revenue network.
And is that affiliate income significant on a monthly basis, would you say?
That's a good question. That fluctuates. I mean, a lot of these affiliate stuff is very volatile. I mean, one month a program might have an affiliate kind of system set up, and they might drop that, and we'll still get people signing up through that, and we won't make any money. We wouldn't pull the post down or anything like that. But it's I mean, I'd say it's relevant, but it's not hugely significant as far as a portion of the site. Uh, and then I do want to stress that, and what I'd suggest people do is if you do kind of go the affiliate income route, that you try to maintain as much credibility and genuine reviews as you can. I wouldn't try to just blatantly promote, for example, payday loans, which I know people can make lots of money on, especially on the affiliate side. That's something we would never promote. And we'll also do reviews and promote products that do not have affiliate network set up. I mean, if you go down to our review column, you'll see a lot of products there where we're doing exactly what we would for an affiliate network company, but we wouldn't make any commission or anything like that. But we do see it as a valuable resource, a valuable tool for our readers.
Gotcha. So some months it may be good revenue, some months it may not be good revenue. Either way, it's a nice addition to the total revenue stream that you have at moneycrashers.com.
Yep.
And the editorial is written from an editorial perspective. You're not going to review cashforgold.com just to have an affiliate link from your website to theirs.
Right. We try to approach the reviews exactly like we would our day-to-day articles, having them be valuable, education. Sometimes we'll do a little combination review where we'll compare all the, for example, tax preparation on online software, compare them all in one article. And it's still a review, but it's a little more valuable to see them all compared together.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, so we've talked in general terms about the revenue, AdSense producing the biggest slice of the pie of the total revenue for the site, but you clearly have your third-party ad networks offers that come in, and you have your affiliate links. Are there any other ways that you're monetizing the website currently?
Those are the main ways. It's a combination of all those aspects you just mentioned, and I guess, yeah, that's pretty much it. What I would say is, for people out there building up a website, monetizing, is to try to not have all your revenue come from one source, just because who knows, if you're with a third-party network and they go bankrupt, then all of a sudden you might be kind of starting at square one and having to lay off people on your team. I also know a lot of people will sell links and text links, which is, I know, something Google frowns upon. That's not something we do. I know a lot of people make a significant amount of money doing that, and I'd suggest not going that route, even in the short term, if you're just trying to make a quick dollar, because you don't want to sacrifice your site, both from a credibility perspective, but also if someone like Google frowns upon your site because you're doing things like that kind of just manipulates the whole online blogosphere website kind of legitimacy. So that's something we've stayed away from. We get questions, offers for that kind of stuff every day, and we could probably double or significantly increase our revenue, but we just
you got a site that has a Google page rank of 6. You know, some people argue it doesn't matter or whatever, but clearly it's a high authority website. I've done some looking at your website. You have over 250,000 external backlinks coming back to various articles on your website, as well as your homepage. I think you're an Alexa top 5,000 or 6,000 ranked website. Clearly, people, who are searching through websites, and if they want to get a link from a financial related website and they look at you as one of the top websites, they're going to want to approach you and see if they can buy that. So speaking of stats, I went on to Alexa.com and I went on to Compete.com. Last week's tutorial, by the time this runs, it'll be a few weeks back. But if you look at how to spy on your competitors on Domain Sherpa, for starting up a business, I use them just to check out different websites that I'm looking at. Alexa.com and Compete.com show traffic trends. They're not, I warned in the video that they're not exact numbers. Clearly, it's just trends, because they're buying data and they're putting it all together and they're trying to estimate what it is. And I give a good example of how I got burned when I bought a website in the past, looking at this and thinking it was close to, even the trending numbers are close. But when I look at it, and I look at the past couple of years, Andrew, on Alexa.com, it looks like your traffic over the past 6 months has literally doubled or tripled. And when I look at compete.com over the past couple of years, it looks like, it was right around 10,000. Actually, it looks like it was around 100,000. And then it's slowly increasing, and sort of the slope of it is continuing to increase over the past year. Shows 250,000 unique readers per month. Clearly, you're doing higher, as you said earlier, 800,000. Have you seen a massive increase in traffic over the past 6 months, or are these trending charts not correct?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I know we chatted about where we started back in 2008, and I'd say in the last couple of years, there's definitely been a big jump in traffic. Nothing in particular about the last 6 months. I think doubling and tripling is pretty accurate in the last couple of years, and again, that's just kind of putting your head down and doing what you know is good for the site and seeing that grow. But there definitely has been an increase in traffic, subscribers, social media followers on Twitter and Facebook. They've all gone up significantly, especially in the last 1 to 2 years, I'd say.
How do you have so many backlinks coming into your site, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely multifold. What our kind of internal strategy is to try to avoid any of the spamming and email marketing where you just email thousands of contacts, websites, and ask them to link to you or to kind of send their readers your way or whatever it might be.
I get those emails every week, just like you do, I'm sure.
So the best that we love to see, and I'm sure you love to see or anyone loves to see, is natural links. So we try to create every article to be unique enough, to be valuable enough, to be interesting enough that a reader reading it will be likely to share with their friends, family on Facebook, Twitter. If they have their own blog, they'll link to it. Or if a reporter's doing research on mutual funds and obviously we'll look at other mutual fund articles out there, might see enough value in our mutual fund post to link to it. That's something that we try to think about on each and every post that we do. Is it quality enough? Is it unique enough? Is it different enough? Does it add enough value such that someone reading it will want to share with their friends, family, things like that? Kind of outside of that, I'll gladly, for example, like this, I'll take part in interviews. A lot of time reporters will be working on a story on couponing or getting out of debt or how to find a job, and we'll get multiple contacts a day asking, hey, can we interview you or one of your contributors? And that's something we always encourage our writers to do, and myself, I'll gladly participate, whether it's a written article, video, radio show. I've done all of the above, and that's a great way not only to get direct links from whoever's doing that. They'll generally offer to link back to your website, but just reaching out to vast readerships through their own networks is a great way just to build kind of traffic to your site, visibility, and it can kind of sustain itself as I mean, it's kind of chicken or the egg. Is it traffic or links? And it all kind of morphs together, and they're all important, and that's something we've tried to do and make it as natural as possible.
Yeah. Okay, so you're not actively going out and offering to guest blog on other people's sites, or actively seeking news reporters to be a source for them, or things like that, putting out press releases on a regular basis?
Yep, I'd say two things. One is no on press releases, actively seeking out reporters. We will contribute guest articles to outside sites. Sometimes either we'll do outreach or an outside site might come to us and say, hey, we're building up a expert blogger network. Do you want to be a part of that? And we'll mostly never turn that kind of opportunity down. As you know, even free articles, writing them on other sites is a great way, even if you don't get a link, just to get visibility, just to get more readership, people seeing the quality of stuff that you might write on Money Crashers. And we also try to build great tools in addition to the content that people will come back to and link as a resource. So for example, we have a top personal finance blogs list, which if you go to the top right of our homepage, you'll see top personal finance blogs.
Hmm.
And that's a very rigorous, in-depth, took a year plus to put together a list that takes into factor all these parameters and kind of ranks all the personal finance, even more financial or business-based sites, and puts them all into a list, because there are just hundreds, thousands of lists out there
Hmm.
of, of websites that are trying to get into the space. A lot of them are low quality. A lot of them are just trying to make a quick buck. So
Right.
that's what that tool has been. And what's been great is because so much thought went into something like that, and we spent so much time and money putting that together, that it's been giving back to us, which has been great as far as readers coming to check out what sites are doing the best. Those websites will come see how they're ranking, and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's another great strategy, is if you can create a great tool like that.
I saw that. When I checked it, there were 622 top personal finance blogs listed. Do you require all of those blogs to link back to you by providing a link to them?
No, there's no requirement at all.
Some of them are going to voluntarily do it, right?
Yep, so, some will voluntarily do it. Some will maybe write about the list or update their readers on how they're doing. But there's no requirement. As long as it's a quality site, we're not going to accept any site onto the list. But if it meets the requirements, is quality enough after we take a look at it, then we will add it to the list with no requirement to link back.
Okay, so you'll do some guest blogging where you're asked or where you see the opportunity. Do you do any advertising? Do you advertise on like cnnmoney.com, or try and get your educational platform in front of people interested in the news to try and cross-pollinate?
Yeah, I mean, generally we might have experimented that less than 5 times in the last 4 years. We don't do any paid advertising, anything like that. We've tried to, again, keep that as natural as possible, but also just budget. We just don't have the budget, especially on those high visibility sites like CNN or Wall Street Journal, whatever it might
Sure.
be, to afford what it would cost to gain advertising or visibility on those sites. So we haven't done that. We also haven't done things with, let's say, like Google AdWords, where you can bid for a spot in the rankings for certain keywords. We've avoided that as well.
So is it fair to say that your traffic has continued to increase over the past 4 years because you publish so much and you have focused content, good content, that it rises up the search engines for the long tail traffic?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, the success has really come down to the content, and that's something we've really tried to keep in mind as we go. And I know search engines, for example, are getting smarter and smarter about that. They're trying to set it up to force you to do good content, and that's something we've tried to do the entire time. But for example, with the Panda updates in Google, those are trying to not outwardly penalize, but make it so that the websites producing the highest quality content, the most unique content, are the ones getting the most visibility in their search engine. So it was nice to see kind of updates like that from Google and other search engines that are recognizing websites or people that are kind of genuinely producing content to really help people, as opposed to just making a quick buck or ranking in search engine.
Every time one of those updates come out by Google, there's always a chatter on Twitter or in the newsletters or on the community websites like Search Engine Journal or Search Engine Watch or SearchEngineLand.com. Do you worry about it? Do you check your traffic when you hear of an update, or does it sort of pass by without much worry by you and your partner?
Yeah, I mean, naturally we will check it in the days, the weeks afterwards, see what happens to us, and some of them have hurt us or been neutral to our disappointment or surprise. But what we've tried to recognize is no update's going to be perfect, and quality sites. I mean, we've read in articles that great sites are getting penalized or traffic's falling upon these updates. So we just kind of, you can call it blind faith, I guess. There's not much more we can do, but we just hope that Google will improve the update, make it more and more accurate, make sure that there's not a lot of innocent websites getting hurt by these updates, and that's something that we try to do. So we do follow it. It's interesting to see when these updates happen and hear about the sites getting hurt and the sites getting helped. But for the most part, we try to take it all with a grain of salt and just keep the long-term perspective and picture.
Yeah. So I want to come back to the financial aspect again. We know that Money Crashers is a business. It's not like it's just you and Gute working on it, where all the money comes in, you split the revenue and you put it in your pockets after, setting aside some for taxes. You've got expenses like writers and editors and hosting and graphic designers and everything else that's involved. Can you tell us what your total revenue is for the website?
Yeah, again, that's a great question when it comes down to revenue, as well as your break-even question earlier. What we're doing with the site, as I mentioned, is trying to have it sustain itself, which leads to us taking less money out of the site than we could. We could run it at a bare bones level, produce one article, a couple articles a week, not have full-time editors, not have a team of writers contributing. And by taking that stance, we're hoping it helps grow the site over time, but it does reduce the amount that we can take in as co-owners of the site. So it's not, we're not making significant amounts of money. If we wanted, I could probably be comparable to what I was making, for example, at my full-time position at an investment fund, but we're trying to take out enough money, and we can take out enough money to survive, pay rent, pay food, things like that. But as much as we can, we're trying to reinvest in the website and full-time editors, hiring a new editor, multiple new writers, things along those lines. So it's kind of a dual philosophy of, yeah, we want to increase revenue, but not so much for our own personal income, especially in the short run, but more to continue growing and sustaining the site.
Sure. So instead of you taking the money out and putting it into your 401k or your retirement account, you're saying, this business could be my retirement account. I'm going to take that money that I would have put in my pocket, and I'm going to plow it right back into the business. I'm going to hire more writers. We're going to produce better content, more beautiful graphics, whatever the case may be. And then hopefully that will come back to you in the future at some point.
Yeah, I actually hadn't thought of it as a retirement account, but I like that way of looking at it. Hopefully it's stable enough that I can call it a retirement account. Nobody ever really knows, but I guess I do look at it as kind of a long-term investment.
Definitely. All right. So let's see. We talked about your writers. Are your writers employees, or are they contractors to 1099 contractors to you right now?
Right now, they're all set up as contractors, and some will contribute and put in more hours than others, but that's how it's set up.
And how many writers and how many editors do you have on staff? The editors, for those not in the industry, the writers write the content, the editors review it. They not only correct the grammar and the punctuation and the sentence structure, but they also kick things back to the writer when they're developing a concept that can't be easily understood by the reader. And so it's important to have both a writer and an editor to review it before it goes to publish. How many writers and how many editors do you have on staff?
We have about 15 to 20 writers on staff, and then 3 editors, excluding myself and Gute, who also kind of help oversee and will continue to take part in the editorial process, coming up with topics, looking at pieces before they get published. But outside of us, 15 to 20 writers, 3 editors.
Gotcha. And so the writers aren't necessarily full-time, because if they were full-time, they'd probably be knocking out a couple articles a day, and you'd have 30 articles being published per day. And so a lot of them are part-time?
Right, exactly.
And are the editors part-time as well?
A couple of them are part-time. One of them's on a full-time basis, but pretty close to full-time hours. It's a big part of what they're doing, and it works out for them because our editors work remotely, so a couple of them have families, things like that, and it works into their lifestyle. But that's much more so on a full-time basis than our writers.
Yeah. Okay. And so you've been on news shows. We've discussed that. I've watched a few of them. I think it was maybe CBS that you've been on. Does that sound right?
Yep, I've had a couple appearances both on NBC News and CBS as well.
So what was that like? Start from the beginning. How did you even get contacted to go on to CBS and be interviewed about financial topics?
Yeah, and that was an example again of it wasn't active outreach on my part. A reporter for NBC and in both cases CBS contacted someone that had interviewed me for one of their articles, a written article before, and that's how kind of it got started, the initial connection, and kind of just from there they wanted a financial expert on the show. Been a few different appearances. One of them was on Black Friday savings. Another was more on insurance, so how to save money on your auto insurance. That was the CBS segment. So it kind of talked with the reporters, talked with the producers, and kind of built up the idea how it would kind of be implemented on their show, and went from there.
Great. So it's a lot of prep work for a 15, 30-second spot, right?
Yeah, a lot of prep work, a lot of nerves, a lot of pressure, a lot of uncertainty when you get there, especially shooting stuff live. But it was all great experiences and great for the site as well.
What way was it great for the site?
I think it just helps kind of intangibly with kind of credibility. So I think naturally, if anyone comes to the site and sees the owner being interviewed on NBC News live television or CBS, then it shows some kind of legitimacy to the site, especially in the world of finance where you want credible experts, you want credible websites, and it definitely, we did not see, I don't think, any traffic from those appearances, any links, anything like that, but just having that presence on our site and being able to say, hey, this is part of my experience, this is part of what I've done in the past, helps viewers who come to the site. And if someone contacts me and asks, hey, we might want you on the radio show, do you have TV experience or radio experience? You can kind of go and talk about those types of things. So I definitely encourage people whenever they can to take advantage of any opportunity, even if it's not going to have direct financial traffic benefits. It's going to have some intangible benefit likely in the long run.
Definitely. Whenever I see big names like that, it adds legitimacy and trustworthiness from my perspective when I'm going there, especially when they link to it. So, yeah, I fully agree. So let me ask you this, Andrew. Have you received, clearly you've grown the traffic of the website. It is a major website in personal finance and one of the major ones in the U.S. Have you been approached by anybody to buy your website from you?
Yeah, it has happened probably 5 to 10 times over the last couple of years where some companies, some private, some public companies have come to us, and often a fairly innocent inquiry, just talking about the site. They like the site, what we've done with it, talk about kind of their network of sites and how we would fit in and their interest there. And sometimes we'll have just conversations to see exactly what they have in mind, or more out of curiosity than anything else. But from our perspective, more internally speaking, we haven't seriously considered selling the site just because, one, we're passionately enjoying it. I can't stress enough. I put in more hours than I did at my full-time position, but I'm enjoying it 10 times more, and it really doesn't feel like work. It's truly enjoyable. But also, from a pure financial and business perspective, we think there's still a lot of room to grow, a lot of kind of traffic to grow, revenue, whatever it might be. We think that selling it in what we feel like is a very early part of the game is not the right move for us as well.
Do you think that 10, 20 years down the road that your end goal is to sell the site for a nice chunk of change that maybe will allow you to retire or semi-retire? Or are you and Gute looking at this as an opportunity to have a lifestyle business that affords you the opportunities to, work a couple of hours a day, the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week, where you have an entire staff doing the work and you just sort of oversee it and check in every day?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are both possibilities as far as the long term end result. I think probably eventually, I think naturally it has to be sold at some point. Hopefully, we can get it to a point where people are actively interested and want to buy it. But I think at least for the next 10, 15 years, I mean, what I right now foresee is still staying actively involved and putting in a lot of hours, not necessarily going all the way down to the 4 hour work week, but maybe a little bit beyond that. If, say, trying to raise families or kids and still enjoying it enough to stay involved, and maybe trying to delegate more and more duties, but still kind of have a hand in the process and oversee things. And then we'd always listen, but I think long term, I think selling is a logical conclusion. Hopefully, again, it is a valuable asset to someone, and we're at a point where we would feel like we've gotten enough out of it and we wouldn't miss the site anymore, which certainly is not the case right now.
Yeah, and the offers that you've entertained over the past couple of years, have any of them come to a discussion of a dollar amount?
No, they haven't. They haven't gotten that far. Most of them, and if someone does approach you, they'll generally, and if they don't, then I'd be suspicious. They'll ask you for access to all of your analytics, your revenue, your whole history of things. And it's gotten to the point where they've asked us for that, but just because we weren't legitimately looking to sell, and we didn't want to waste all their time. I mean, they would spend days, weeks trying to analyze, coming up with a number. We never made it to that point.
Yeah. All right. All right. So the final question is this, Andrew. Now that moneycrashers.com is a recognized, authoritative site, and it has, for all intents and purposes, made it. Clearly you've got your game plan. You're going to continue to do the same. You're going to grow your 800,000 readers per month to 1 million or 2 million or 5 million. Continue to have fun running your own business. Do you have another domain or another website that you're eyeing for development that might complement it, or that you and Gute have been discussing, in between working hours?
Yeah, we don't. I think, and that might not be the smartest move. It really is all about Money Crashers right now, and we're pretty invested in the Money Crashers site. Just because there is so much uncertainty, I would not recommend against people building up multiple sites. If you have one solid one, there's nothing wrong with diverting a little bit of focus and attention to diversify a little, have some other options out there. And while things might seem good one day, it might seem good for us today, anything can happen. And I'm never surprised on drastic reductions in traffic or what I see out there on the web. So there's always in the back of my mind a little bit of fear, a little bit of risk, just because no matter what, anything can happen at any time.
Definitely. And you never know what's going to happen in the financial markets from week to week either.
Exactly.
Yeah. Andrew, thank you for your candid answers to my probing questions. If you have a follow-up question, please post it in the comments below, and we'll ask Andrew to come back and answer as many as he can. If you'd like to follow Andrew and moneycrashers.com, you can do so on Twitter, @moneycrashers. And you can also like them on Facebook and get updates of their articles and their tweet chats that they have going on and everything else that goes on in the community. And of course, they're at facebook.com @moneycrashers. Andrew Schrage, co-owner of moneycrashers.com, thank you for coming on the show, sharing your knowledge of the website and financial development integrated with a uniquely branded domain name. And thank you for being a Domain Sherpa.
Thanks a lot for having me, Michael. It was a lot of fun.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.